say to anyone who's listening, feel free to jump in at any time. I've got some stuff prepared, but I like to play everything by ear because I just want to hear what the people are saying about this situation that we've got going on. And I just want to say greetings to everyone. This is episode 1 of We the People Are the Militia, and I think the title of the show is very important because I feel, and I think evidence bears this out, that we're using the most important words in the law in the title of the show. And that's the words that give the power to the individual in our society, our common law, which is the United States Constitution. And it's we the people because we ordain the government, we create the government, so therefore we can never be under the subject or under the jurisdiction of an entity that we create. And what enforces that? Well, according to the law, United States Constitution, where we're broadcasting from, which is Commonwealth of Virginia, the militia is the top law enforcement arm according to the law, which that's really the only thing that we can go by. And our alleged servants are taking an oath to uphold the Constitution, and yet that everything that they do is a violation of the Constitution. And in the title, Barbie and I were discussing, how we were going to, describe what it is that we need to do to regain control of the government. And basically, I always bring it back to, and I always learn my information from smarter individuals than myself, I always bring it back to following the money. And basically, money runs everything that this government does. Everything in our society is controlled by money, and therefore that's where the power lies. And the individual American has absolutely no control over the institution or the object that controls everything that happens to them in their daily existence. So basically, our government, which is set up at to have the people as sovereigns, it basically has the people turned into citizen slaves, and it's because the masses don't have any control over their the valuation of their currency. And we need to enforce the Constitution, and basically the only way we're going to change anything about how our government functions is when the people have a constitutional valuation of our currency, and that's our property, and that's everything that we own. It's every concept that we have is monetized and controlled by the Federal Reserve Bank. And I always like to define things, because what we do in our videos and in all of our communications with the public is that we act as prosecutors. We're not just talking and saying like, oh, the government is illegal and unconstitutional. We're documenting that we're saying this to as many folks as we can, and that we're citing the law. We're citing United States Constitution. We're citing Basel III Declaration, or actually I should say the Third Basel Accord, which is the contract that controls all the world's governments. And that's a private bank that controls everything. A private foreign bank that controls everything that the United States government does. And it's not just, and I'm talking about the Basel III Accord, and I'm talking about the Bank for International Settlements, but it's not just that the Bank for International Settlements controls the United States government. It's that the Bank for International Settlements openly controls all of the world's governments, and that they willingly comply through these financial agreements, which openly enslave the public through bonds and debt and taxes. And that the real elephant in the room with all of this is that not only is Greece and Cyprus insolvent, but the United States Federal Reserve Bank and United States government is insolvent and are continually defaulting on their fiduciary responsibilities under the unlawful rules that they themselves set up. So basically, that is everything in a nutshell, and we can get into the minutia from local election rigging to like I said, the functioning of the Third Basel Accord and how we can document all of the governments of the world, getting funding from this one source, and that now is the time for action, and the only action is concerted militia action, lawful militia action, in accordance with Article 1, Section 13 of Virginia Constitution and Amendment 2 of United States Constitution. And, this all segues in with what's going on in Greece. This is playing out in real time here in the United States with the analysis of the rigged stock market. That's another thing that we're going to push forward in this program and in this show, that everything is rigged, from the stock market to professional and college sports. Everything with money on the line is being rigged and manipulated to maximize the profit, to maximize the control of the institutions that are benefiting from the status quo. And when we see the Greek issue, we'll see it being used over the years. Back in 2010, a Greek bond issue was used as the excuse for why there was a flash crash on the stock market. So we're just also pointing out to folks, if you want to do some high-level research, it's very simple. It's all hidden out there in plain sight, and they really only have a few things that they can go to. And Greek bonds, this has been an issue that they've been using as an excuse for the insolvency and covering up the insolvency of the entire global banking system. And it's coming to a head right now. And this all is tying in with not just financial staged events, but also with events that set up the number one modus operandi of this international banking cartel, which is funding all sides of all international military conflict. We see that in our generation, and we're living through right now, the staged global conflict was escalated to the point where it is right now, which has created innumerable debt, uncountable debt, and that was set up by the staged 9/11 false flag attacks. Obviously, we all know that what the official government rhetoric set forward in the 9/11 Commission report was false. We all know that the legal counsel and 6 of the members of the actual commission themselves stated that the commission report was based on lies from every government agency and every institution that they interviewed. And that trillions were made through short selling and insurance fraud and etc. So those are the kind of things that we're moving into and showing how this moves towards global conflict, in which these international banking cartels, and as headed by the Bank for International Settlements, always funds all sides and controls all sides. So I apologize if I'm talking over somebody. I thought I heard somebody talking.
No, I just wanted to throw out there, though, real quick, with all the new callers coming in, if anybody would like to ask a question at any time, please hit #6, and that'll put you in the queue to talk to us.
Yeah, please. Yeah, if anybody has anything they'd like to say, I mean, a lot of this stuff, I think maybe those listening to the call might be familiar with these concepts of international hedging, international hedge funds, hedging everything from internationally traded corporations to hedging by financing and controlling all sides of a armed military conflict. And today we see this exemplified in ISIS. Is somebody's coming through? Come on through, please. My apologies. Bear with me. I'll get caught up to speed with the technology. But as many of you who are listening know, ISIS is headquartered in the Ronald Reagan Building in Washington D.C. It's got staging areas and offices throughout the world. And what I'm talking about is ISIS, and I urge everyone to use an internet search. I use Google, but it'll all pop up whether you're using Yahoo or Google. If you just do a Google search for ISIS Pennsylvania Avenue, and what will pop up if you're not familiar already with this information, it'll shock you. What will be shown is a military intelligence government contractor called ISIS, which operates in the Middle East and does all sorts of operations for the military and is a client of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the Coalition Provisional Forces and Khaki International, and the list goes on. But basically, that's what it is. And if that's not enough, we all know, who are in the know, according to Edward Snowden and according to many other intelligence analysts, that the alleged leader of the so-called group called ISIS is a man called, allegedly, al-Baghdadi. That's what he's been named. But most folks have seen the pictures of John McCain with this guy who's alleged to be named al-Baghdadi, and many others know this al-Baghdadi as a Mossad agent called Elliot Simone, or Shimon Elliott. And there we'll segue into what ISIS is at its basic core level, and how that name ISIS has been used over the years for something called the Israeli Secret Intelligence Service. So whenever we're talking about the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, we're always talking about Israeli Zionist interest. And it's always a show that who's training these folks? Israeli. Who's arming them? Well, that's the United States. That's Israeli interests. That's the MI6. That's the CIA. That is the Mossad. This is well documented, and this is the kind of thing that where we're showing, we're displaying for everyone to see that this is all a fraud to take. Oh yes, yes, ma'am.
Do you have a question from a caller?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Caller, you're not engaged. Go ahead. Hey, Chris?
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to let you know that I put you on top of the poll. We can't have people in the United States speaking out like this.
Well, I think it's imperative. I mean, I wish I could spend my time doing something else, but I don't think there's anything else more important to do.
Well, Mr. Jensen, I just thought I'd come.
How are you doing, sir?
This is a small part, and I know that what you're trying to do on the East Coast, there's people all over the nation that have put together these podcasts, and I want to welcome you to the family.
Thank you, sir.
There's a huge number of us that are gathering, and Richmond, Virginia is well represented with Chris Dorsey.
Yeah, and Glenn Sutphin is with me right now, and there are a number of us, but I appreciate that, sir. I watch your videos and I share them, and I agree, and we're talking about the macro right now, but I have similar issues with family land grabs that occur in Hagerstown, Maryland, to the issues that you've had with your family in upstate New York. So I find that we have the same issues, and they take our property away in the exact same unlawful and thieving manner.
Alright. Glenn knows me. If Glenn's listening, I want to give a shout out to Glenn.
Yeah, Glenn.
And we've been collaborating for a long time,
Yeah, Glenn's waving from behind the camera, and we've got a lot of work to do around here, but we've already documented. We've already done the hard work. We've already documented beyond a shadow of a doubt that there is absolutely no legitimacy at all to our government, and that everything that they do is only a fraud to take as much away from us as they possibly can. When we have the rights to everything, when we are the lawful power and authority, and we're just not going to stop until we see a restoration of our property, and that we are lawfully compensated.
This is the plan, as I understand them, from affiliation with Militia for the last 35 years, is that the grassroots across the nation are more and more coming together and standing up and advising this completely rogue, out of control, politically corrupt establishment that there's 320 million of us, and there's only a couple of 100,000 of them. We outnumber them greatly. So I can't agree with you more.
Yes, sir. I think now is where we have to start coming up with plans of action and movement, and we are unfortunately not at this point reaching the masses. And I think we are going to need, take the masses will follow. The masses are sheep. They have been
dumbed down.
They have been dumbed down to the point where they are, for the most part, incompetent. Most of the adults in the United States of America, for many different reasons, are like incompetent children. And so they follow along with everything, and they think that the most important thing every week is who wins a football game, which has already been rigged by gambling interests. So we need to come up with a critical mass of folks that can think rationally and that are honorable and that are competent enough to take over for these out-of-control, treasonous, sociopathic traitors that the masses have handed all of their property over to. So I would love to think that it's us against them and that it's 99% of the population versus 1% of the population. But I think it's going to be more like 2% of the population versus like 0.5% of the population or something like that. But it needs to, because most are just going to be spectators in this. But I do want to segue into some of the actions that I'm advocating, because I advocate tactics and I take actions and advocate tactics for this movement. And one of the latest of my tactics, when I require compensation for various specific crimes that I lay out against government officials, I always, at this point forward, and I started with the Richmond Chief of Police, video myself, and sometimes Glenn and others are with me, requiring that the police hand over their weapons, that they disarm, because this is the big movement, and this is, I think, where the rubber is going to hit the road with our movement. We videotape military vehicles flying over and driving through our neighborhoods, and some of them are United States military, some of them are military vehicles of the Virginia State Police, some of the Richmond City Police, some of the Federal Reserve Bank Police. But what we are seeing over and over again, no matter what entity of this enforcement arm of the banking cartel they are gaining more militarized vehicles, that they are flying over our houses and driving around in our neighborhoods. So I think it's only the right thing to do to start a movement, to start requiring the constitutional handing over of the military equipment that is being used to shut down American cities. Like Boston was shut down over a false flag attack. They shut down the fourth largest city in the United States. A military shutdown, allegedly for a 19-year-old guy who gets drunk at fraternity parties. We can't have that stand, and it's unlawful too. And basically, I think that we need to start a national movement to disarm the police, because the police are only the enforcement arm of these thugs. I mean, we have so much overwhelming proof that the police are nothing but stooges for the government hacks that control the city, state, and municipal, city, state, and federal governments, excuse me. And this is in complete contradiction to the law. We are funding these folks to take our guns away, and what are they using that? Are they disarming themselves? No. They're arming themselves more. Why do they want to arm themselves more while at the same time they want to take our guns away? I don't like that equation. That equation is unacceptable to me. I require the law be upheld. So therefore, in Virginia, and I've done some background work on the Texas Constitution and how this can be done in Texas, and also Maryland, my home state of Maryland, and Pennsylvania. I've family ties to Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and all of those states require me to always be well more armed than any government agent who is one of my servants that would ever approach me. And so that seems like it would be lawful, that the people, in the form of a militia and individually, have more arms than their alleged servants. So I'm going to read from Virginia Constitution, and this is a basis of a lot of our work, and I'll get into the minutia of this one section of Article 1 of Virginia Declaration of Rights, and this is Section 13. That a well-regulated militia composed of the body of the people trained to arms is the proper, natural, and safe defense of a free state. That standing armies in time of peace should be avoided as dangerous to liberty, and that in all cases the military should be under strict subordination and governed by the civil power. So, I don't think anybody needs to be an expert in legalese or run to Black's Law Dictionary to find out what those words mean, because the author is quoted on what the militia means, and the author of that is George Mason, and he states that I may be paraphrasing it. I've seen this written a number of different ways, but that the militia is the body of the people, with the exception of a few government officials, and I think it says it all there. It is irrational and it is schizophrenic to have a functioning system in which a group, which is the people, create a tool to protect their property, and then through some sort of scam, the property of the people that created the government now becomes the property of the government. And that is really not accurate, because it's really only the property of the bondholders of the governments of the world. That's more of the abstraction, and we can talk about the macro and the micro, but we could segue in, and maybe we'll do it. And if folks out there listening, want to steer the conversation in another direction, please let me know. We can flip on a dime as far as discussing every aspect of this criminal institution that has enslaved the masses and even attempts to enslave the people who are resisting it constantly. That's basically my occupation, is resisting tyranny, resisting slavery. It's a full-time job, because it's not easy to function in society without getting your car inspected, or without a driver's license, or not agreeing to any banking contract, and therefore or filming these things. Yeah.
You have another caller with another question.
Awesome. Yeah. Please call her. Go ahead.
Hey, Chris. Hey, thanks for taking the time to proceed. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
I was just kind of curious. Have you heard the various rumors that fall about what the elite was saying and claim that they want to merge with machines and basically turn themselves into a god?
Yes. Transhumanism is a big movement among the elite, and I'm not an expert, but I'm fairly well familiar with the fact that that's one of their main motivations. They view themselves as gods, and they want to have their interests go on forever, and that's one of these sick, anti-human motivations of these elite who point nuclear weapons at every direction, and then before they finish doing that, they create their escape route underground or through rocket ships or things that are whatever have you. They do have these crazy plans where they have not come to grips with their own mortality and the fact that we're all people and
We're finite.
we are finite, and this is another one of their motivations. I do know different aspects of this, this viewing themselves as God quality. I urge folks to definitely look into transhumanism, and I thank the caller very much. And also look into a lot of this stuff that is driving the banking dynasties, and that's that these folks think that they are reincarnations of a Messiah that was known as Sabbatai Zvi, and also Jacob Frank, who claimed to be the reincarnation of Sabbatai Zvi or Sabbatai Zevi. And that the Rothschild family, the Warburg family, the Schiffs, etc., they think that they are connected to the Frank and therefore are reincarnations of these gods. That's another thing I'd like to tie into, maybe if we can talk about ISIS and the fact that ISIS is being used everywhere, and I will even get as abstract as to make folks, not make folks, or invite folks to think back over the summer when we were having that ice bucket challenge craze, I should say, and everyone was getting ice buckets thrown on themselves, and it was a big, social media craze. But what is that? ISIS. They play these little games, these little word tricks. And so, ISIS, what is ISIS? Okay, that's the ancient Egyptian goddess. And a lot of these obelisks that one sees everywhere, that ties into the story of Isis and Horus and Set. So I invite folks to do background and start seeing that these at the end of the day, these are what they would call lesser magic tricks. And these are jokes. This is them letting us know. This is them displaying everything which is hidden in plain sight. And this is that they get more power from us, and this is obvious because they have our complicity, because we know that is what's going on. We know that when there is $4 to $6 quadrillion in circulation, which is, makes every single man, woman, and child on the planet a multi-billionaire, that could never be spent. That amount of money, which is 1,000 trillion, and there's $6 quadrillion in circulation right now. So that could never be spent. All the money that's in circulation that they're playing these games with, that they're resetting the stock market with, when they turn it back on and turn it off again. They're just creating these bad assets out of nothing, and it's never going to stop until we the people start retaking everything of value. That's what's going on in Greece now, where Greece can't do any more deals with their creditors, which is the only thing that's going on, because all the money that's going to go to Greece is going to go straight to their creditors. But that doesn't mean anything. That just means that the creditors of Greece can continue to charge rent on every valuable piece of property or every natural resource of everything in Greece. So we the people need to regain control of our hard assets, farmland, buildings, property. property, anything of value, the computer programs, and this is our goal at the beginning and end of every day in Richmond, Virginia, is to go into the Richmond Federal Reserve Bank and force, through mandate of law, enforce lawful coinage of money. And that means that everything of value that is put forward in the Richmond Federal Reserve Bank, it will be equally distributed amongst the residents of the states that those banks serve, as mandated in the law. So we will never, ever, ever get anything accomplished until we get the valuation of our own currency. Our currency is based on what is worst for us, and it will never change until we change the valuation of our currency to what is best for us. It seems like very simple concepts.
So let me ask you one more question since I'm on a roll here and you are too.
Yes, sir.
How do we go about doing that? That has been the ultimate question that I have asked for a very long time.
Okay.
How do you go about getting possession of the currency back into the people's hands where it should be?
Okay. Well, here, basically, I think it's a multi-step process, and I like to be very open about my plans, and not just my plans, but the plans of the people, and what I and we, the people around here, view as good tactics to take. And basically, we contact the institutions that we are dealing with, and we videotape them violating the law. We talk to them with certain language, like when I tell the chief of police that I want his gun and the guns of the police force, I use the word require, because we're carrying out a lawful order. We're requiring it. We're not asking permission. We're requiring it. And so what I suggest, and a lot of what we do is this is, I'm putting out propaganda as the arm of my ancestors. I am we the people, and because my ancestors were around and were amongst the people when this document was put in, and even before that. So I'm not going to say like, we need to figure out a way to ask permission of this government that was formed by us for them to give us the stuff that they're never going to give us back. So we need to force them to do it. We need to force them using the court of public opinion, embarrassing them publicly. We need to have campaigns against them. And basically, we need to do anything under the law that we need to do to abolish this government in every sort of way, and that means everything. Now I'd like to start talking about tactics, so as to be as direct as I can, and I apologize if I'm not the greatest communicator. I'm working on getting these complex thoughts out. We need a critical mass. Say, we'll compare it with the Bundy Ranch. Say if we came somewhere around Washington, D.C. or Richmond, Virginia, and we had as many armed militiamen in front of the Federal Reserve Bank as were out at the Bundy Ranch, I think that would probably be the first story on the
Every news
news outlet in the world.
Yeah.
Because we've already gone through. I'm just responding if the individual is listening who asked a question about whether we hand documentation of these crimes that we are catching the government officials in, whether we hand them. And I've got hours of video of doing that, from the chair of the Richmond Federal Reserve Bank to congressmen, to senators, I mean, and basically, they can't say anything other than, this is correct. We need a critical mass of armed Americans to come forward and say, like, we're going to stand by the law, and here it is. We're going to lay it out.
Now you're talking the right language, because if you're talking about protesting and lying, then wrong been passed. We need to stand up and demand this.
Require, because we require of our servants, because they're our servants. We require that you hand it over. It is required. It's not something, a demand can be negotiated. A requirement cannot be negotiated. We do require. I agree 100%, sir, and I will say that we use, the gun is used for many different purposes, and when we do go down to the Federal Reserve Bank, and when we do have correspondence, and when we do talk to these government officials, we are always armed. And a lot of the times, the police, they will not like to show up at a place where they are outgunned. And we need to have, we will, we do have conversations with these police officers. It's always taped, but they do hear us. They do hear what we're saying, and they do comprehend what we're saying, even though they are violating the law every day when they wake up in the morning and when they go to bed at night. But we do need a critical mass. That's the thing. We need a critical mass.
And two people don't cut it.
Right. And we see that we need these out in the open discussions about strategy, because what we also see is that the opposition to the government is controlled by the government. And they lead everybody in the absolute wrong direction. And every time one of these protest movements that seems to be associated with something constitutional gets steam, it implodes and is exposed as a front for the Rockefeller Family Fund, the Tides Foundation, the Russian government, the United States government, XYZ local police force, XYZ bank. So, it's as simple as that. We've got a lot of folks out there that are making a lot of money off of the militia movement, that are making a lot of money off of the so-called patriot movement, etc. But they aren't really, they're not hitting the bullseye. They are, they're beating around the bush. We need to, we have plans. We've set forward with folks, I don't know if y'all are familiar with Brandon Rao, who's a United States Marine veteran who was abducted in his house about 10 miles away from where we're sitting right now. And he was held against his will because he was saying that the government was complicit in 9/11 attacks. And basically, that's what happens. And a lot of folks, they glommed on to this, issue and subject, and then it just disappeared. But what I'm saying is that we've all had discussion. I'm talking about Brandon, myself, family members of Brandon's, other Marine veterans. I mean, you name it, high-ranking former military officials. And what we say is that we've got to do it. We can talk about all sorts of tactics. I mean, we can outflank every government official and every police officer at every meeting when we get down and go in with a plan. But we got to make the big tactical moves. We need a big gathering, and we need kind of a single-minded determination of basically everything that we have put forward as a figure of authority in our current structure is our enemy, and we need to unwind this system before it's too late, before they really start with the, left and right nuclear false flags, and, before they start shutting down every city like they did Boston, we need to start making these moves in the open. Everything public and everything given as much attention as can be given, because we're standing on the law. We have the law on our side. We have, that's another thing. Why don't, if we just keep everything honest, then we're much better off monetarily, spiritually, psychologically. Our health is much better. We just need to stand by the truth, stand by kind of the, nature of our common law, which is our rights are infinite until we infringe on others' rights. And then there is, common law to settle those disputes. And it doesn't mean that the government controls everything, and then we have to ask permission of our servants to have basic human rights and have access to our own property. So, it's crunch time. I'd be happy to hear from others who have thoughts on kind of spearheading this operation of restoring the law, restoring sanity to government. That we've got a lot to think about. We have not even really touched on some of the hot button issues as far as our government not only being controlled by a private bank, but our government basically being controlled by a foreign country, and but not just one foreign country, but mostly one foreign country, because when we talk about the Federal Reserve Bank, we're talking about an institution that is headed and fronted by dual Israeli citizens, and there's a dual Israeli citizen that runs the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond. His name is Jeff Wacker. Janet Yellen is the head of the Federal Reserve Bank Board, and Stanley Fischer, who is the real brains behind the current operation, former head of not only the IMF, but also as of 2013, Stanley Fischer was the president of the Bank of Israel. And, then maybe we'll segue, we'll just touch on that a little bit, and we can segue into the activities in Tel Aviv and get to the real power behind the throne. And I'm using those terms literally and figuratively. We can start talking about the Rothschild family and their strategic interest in the state of Israel. And I just recommend and suggest to others, if they're interested, to do a Google search for Tel Aviv, Rothschild Boulevard, and international banks, and it will show all of the most powerful banks in the state of Israel, and all the most powerful international banks have locations not only in Tel Aviv, but on Rothschild Boulevard in Tel Aviv. And it's pretty open and shut, and the circle is pretty much finished. When you follow the money, we can get into the intricacies of the Zionists versus the Jesuits, etc. But they're intermarrying. They are one and the same. The Zionist, is a new name for an old concept, pushed forward by, ancient Talmudists, the so-called Venetian black nobility. It goes back before that. But again, that's important, but it's just an element of what we face. It's just one of the elements of what we face, and it is, genealogical and bloodline connections. That's how this operation functions. It's the lifeblood, if you will, and that's another carefully chosen word. But there's also a converse angle to that, meaning that this is a faction, and that everything in these political worlds and these political intelligence operation runs through factions and tactics. And bloodlines. That's a good way to use factions. That's one of the best ways and the most secure. But it's not the only, and it can also be used against those who use it. Because that's another concept that we're pushing forward. This is the psychological judo, where the tyranny that we face is so strong that we must use its own strength to defeat it, because it's very top heavy, because it's run through the sociopathy of its masters. And they're the worst human beings on the planet, and some of them, as maybe the former caller stated, maybe more or less human, some more than others. But this system, it needs to be abolished. That's one thing that we know. The law demands we abolish this system. And I urge everyone, just on a basic, more simple, vein, not talking about international conspiracy or anything of the sort, just asking the folks in their daily life, don't agree to anything that's against your best interest. If somebody, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Hey Chris, I just wanted to let you know your first hour is up. I think you're doing absolutely wonderful. But I wanted to give everybody a chance. If anybody else has any questions, please press pound 6 so you can ask them a question. It'll put you in the call queue. We've had some people leave, we've had some people come in, and some people. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns that you'd like to address, press pound 6 and that will switch you through so you can talk to Chris. Chris asked, I have a comment for you, so.
Oh, yes, please.
Rothschilds are one of my favorite groups around. You do know that this past year, I believe it was in November, maybe October, Madame Rothschild passed away.
Yes.
And her will is still in litigation, as the child gives which.
Very interesting. I want to delve into that a little bit more, and I also want to segue into talking about the connections, and I think that this is maybe why this is still in litigation, because there's probably a lot of interest all over Europe, including Russia, that they don't necessarily want to publicize. They don't necessarily want to put it in somebody else's hands right now, because one thing that I know is that wherever there's something of value, a Rothschild owns it. And when the Russian oil began to go from being nationalized to being privatized, N.M. Rothschild brokered the deal. When Russia's top oil billionaire was allegedly imprisoned by the Putin administration, the government of Russia, his shares of the most valuable oil company in Russia, Yukos Oil, was transferred over to I think it was Edmund Rothschild. So I think that it's really key, and that they don't want to let too much of the cat out of the bag. Yeah, that happened a while ago. when when she passed. She's famous for wearing that Baphomet necklace, and she had a lot of interest in the family wine business, but it goes much deeper than that wine business with the Rothschilds, and they've got their hands in everything. And sometimes folks, they'll tell me, and my fellow researchers, that we've got it all wrong, and that it's not the Rothschilds, but it's just where the rubber meets the road. We know enough to know that the Rothschilds have their hands in everything. They control the largest aluminum refinery in Siberia. That's the largest aluminum company in the world. They control it. It's in Russia. They control the conveyance of the nationalization to privatization of the Russian oil company. They own the majority stocks, and all of these corporations and all of these so-called oligarchs, they're only minor stockholders in these Rothschild-owned central banks. And again, yes, thank you. Please go ahead.
Hey, caller.
Hello, this is Skip Strady, housekeeper from up here in Lake George, New York. Up here, been doing this for about 30 years, or what you're trying to do now. And I'd like you to know that the people of these United States are the rightful masters of both Congress and the courts, and not to overthrow the Constitution, but to overthrow the man who perverts the Constitution. These Rothschilds, that's just a word for Red Shield. They're the people that control the money, and the reason that they control you is because they control the press. They actually create money from our ink and our paper, from what they call a fiat currency, which fiat simply means to give value. You can take a roll of toilet paper and run it through the press and give it the same value. That's why we have this massive inflation we have today. And that's why they're controlling us, because basically they're freaks who want to have complete control. They're not satisfied with control. Lord Acton said it well. He said absolute control. Absolute power absolutely corrupts. And so we're dealing with men who are alter egos, who have absolute power and absolutely intend to corrupt everybody. When the people wake up and take their control back, they'll change what's going on here.
Amen. I mean, that's it. That's everything in a nutshell. That everything.
Say, 20 or 30 years here from East Coast to West Coast, and it's about unity, and it's about us respecting or acceptance and responsibility. I served during Vietnam under Bradley. Bradley said, we lead by example, we do it with integrity, and people will follow. And so if we lead these small groups, and we organize these groups under civility, where we're not causing mayhem while we're doing it, and educate them, we'll achieve our goals here that you're trying to achieve.
Well, I really hope that's what happens. I think that's a must. It's eventually going to happen. Eventually, this system will implode. Eventually, the focus is going to be a target on the fronts, back, and sides of the bankers, regardless of if it's done in an orderly, lawful manner, or whether it's done as as the ship goes down. So I agree 100%. This is a banking scam. It's a printing press, but as was said before, it's not even about printing paper money anymore, because there's only about like 1% of enough paper to back even a quarter of the money in circulation now. It's about algorithmic computer programs that are constantly reset, constantly manipulated, that create and monetize debt by the quadrillions. And I agree. I agree.
They create money out of thin air. They cannot fail because they have so much money to burn that they can literally buy the world. These people, they
I agree 100%. And just to go along with the angle with the gold and the tie, dovetail that in with 9/11, as I, just briefly interject. Title 31 of U.S. Code, it demands a yearly audit of all of the gold in the Federal Reserve Bank system. It has never been done. We have directly had contact with an individual called D.P.V. Smith, who is General Counsel of the Richmond Federal Reserve Bank, asking them many, many questions, including about the default of the Federal Reserve banking system when it comes to calls on a third party's gold. So basically saying that we don't have any guarantee that there is any gold anywhere, and that when you talk about the gold market, for each piece of paper gold that someone allegedly owns, for each ounce, there's between 100 and 1,000 other owners. So this is another just derivatives-based system, and yeah, the gold has disappeared, and we don't know where it is, but okay, then we'll tie it into 9/11, because a lot of gold disappeared from the Trade Center complex, as Barbie mentioned, and we'll say that the Mossad was involved, which obviously Israel did 9/11. The Mossad carried out the attacks. It was a Mossad explosives team that took down the Trade Center complex and that profited from the insurance fraud, and we can only presume confiscated the gold.
Wait a minute, I'm going to stop you there because you went on to the insurance fraud. Let's explain the insurance fraud because a lot of people don't understand it.
Okay.
When the Twin Towers fell and burned, and as we all know, it was a conspiracy of some kind. Doesn't matter who did it because we know it was a setup. Those people were killed on purpose. Now, the gold that was at the bottom of the Twin Towers, the Federal Reserve that was there, it took 10 years for them to file with the insurance company for gold. After 10 years, the insurance company did pay off for the amount that they said that they have in there. They had no leverage to prove it because everything was supposedly burned. They had no leverage to prove anything, but the insurance company did pay it off. That's something else that we really need to look at because who did they pay?
I guess that's where the Greenbergs and AIG, I would say, they come in on a lot of this stuff. Kroll Associates, I would say, is a place to look for the answers to those questions, because this is a lot of insurance fraud, and Glenn...
The dude on Building 7.
Well, yeah, and then there's also the insurance fraud of the just strictly the insurance on the building, which was owned by Larry Silverstein and his partner, another Mossad agent named Frank Lowy. But it is very complex, and it's anything of value. And if you follow the trail, you'll find where it leads. And this has to do with a lot of the every agency that's in on this cover up, even the contractors who are taking away the evidence at the crime scene. Turner Construction. There's a lot behind their involvement in various other frauds and scams and false flag operations involving the government, down to the contractors working on the site. So, I'd be interested to hear more about your thoughts.
I wonder how much the painters got that were there every night for the last 3 months before the towers were attacked. It's known that they were there
Well, I'm familiar with of course, with that, and if you lose me, it'll just be for a second. I'm losing some juice on my phone, but also that reports. I don't know if y'all are familiar with reports of the Israeli Mossad explosives and demolitions team that was living inside of the Trade Center complex, and that they didn't even have to have their be given complete access or keys. They were living inside the Trade Center complex, and they were there to document it. They were picked up. Mossad agents by the hundreds were picked up in a sting operation, and also.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, sir.
No, I was going to ask you if you heard of the equation put together, which I firmly myself believe is what took place. That plane really is in what we all see, which supposedly is the World Trade Center. That it was a 3D holographic image created by Star Wars back in the Ronald Reagan years. And it's also a part of Project Bluebeam, where planes did not actually hit the building. It was a 3D holographic image because it's been shown on YouTube, the video of the wing disappearing on the front side of a building. I'm just curious to find out what your thoughts were on that.
Well, I'm familiar, and what I can say is that it is possible, and I've also seen videos with no planes and not even a holograph. So I know that that those buildings were demolished through controlled demolition. I think it is possible and probable that the planes that were alleged to hit those buildings, and that I'm sure no plane hit the Pentagon. I do know that for a fact. And the other subject is interesting conjecture that I research and study, and I think I think that I like to speak authoritatively on things that I can verify, and that it is very interesting and thought-provoking. And yes, I'm aware of that, and I definitely think that there's a possibility that no planes hit any of those buildings. But I'm not saying that I know that for a fact, but I know that we've been lied to about everything, and this would be just another edition. As many of us have heard, the 9/11 Truth movement started well before the 9/11 attacks. So I always keep that in mind as well. But yeah, if anybody's got anything, just go right ahead.
I don't know if I'm still live or not, but I think it's all interesting because this money, this debt-based fiat currency is worthless without any gold, without any silver, without any backing behind it. It just becomes your slavery that's backing.
Oh, well, that's what it is, and it's also our farmland. Because farmland is the most valuable asset. That we can have. That's where all the rich folks put their money. They buy expensive, valuable art, and they buy valuable farmland, amongst other things. But those are the two big ones. And so yeah, we're bonded out. I mean, that's one thing I'd like to touch on a little bit is the idea that this money is created, like you say, it's basically created out of thin air, and they're overvaluing us, as far as the money goes, And this is, through the creation of, municipal, national, sovereign, so-called sovereign bonds. And so, we're bonded out. Our slavery is bundled up and sold on the open market, and that's what creates the money. So, to put it very simply, in these kind of colloquial truisms, our system is based on we, the people, borrowing money from ourselves at interest. And so, it seems like one of these non sequitur, non-starters. It would almost be like, preferable, and I'm only, saying this tongue-in-cheek, to have, someone with a computer brain to digest this information. That we, the people, are the creators of the money, and it's always based on our ability to create the money, and when we have to get the money that we need to use, we have to borrow it from ourselves, and we also have to pay interest. And who are we paying this interest to? Who are we in debt to? I mean, we've already answered the questions, but again, it's like things that folks need to think about every day. This is another thing I'm somewhat controversial for saying certain things because, I'm a political figure locally, and when I go up and I speak at a school board meeting or a city council meeting and I say, if you send your kids to Richmond City Public Schools, you are endangering your child and you are making an incompetent decision because the schools are the problems. Folks, they're jobs. The problem is that we don't have jobs. The problem is that all the jobs are worthless. For no good, they serve no good purpose. They're just to perpetuate the system. It is a negative. It is a negative to get the economy rolling. It is a negative to keep the economy propped up. Because what does it do? It just tightens the noose around the people. It doesn't bring them out of poverty. It creates more debt for them. It doesn't do anybody any good to go to a 4-year college. It just ensures that they will be in debt. I mean, when folks wake up and go to work in the morning, I want to tell them, and I do this very publicly, you're doing bad things. You're wasting your time and the time of others. You work and serve criminals. And this is what I say to folks when they pay taxes, when they get their car inspected, when they do anything like that. We do not agree. We are non-assumpsant, and we don't go along with any of this stuff. Because I know how it works. Why would I go along with a fraud? I mean, that would make me really stupid. I mean, but everything's a fraud. Everything about our society and the way it functions is fraudulent and negative and against the best interest of humans and all living things. So, why are folks so happy to go along with it? It's a good question, but I don't really think they are happy to go along with it. I think that they have just had certain parts of their brains turned off. And we need to turn their brains back on. And maybe we can segue this into some of the other activity that we engage in and we encourage others to do, which is just to ignore all the laws. I like to videotape myself consuming cannabis on federal property, especially court property like the federal courthouse and at the state capitol. I've done it in front of news cameras. Others have done it with me. I'm carrying a Bible in my hand and I'm exercising my constitutional guarantees.
and above that, it is absolute insanity. Despite the, criminal drug ring run by the CIA and the, criminal cannabis ring run by the CIA in Colorado, it is insane to think that we have to ask permission or be subject to go to jail for using the world's best and most ancient medicine. And I'm speaking of cannabis. Cannabis has been shown, and I will stick to what I know for sure, to be a cure most. And on top of that, it would make it impossible if the masses started consuming cannabis for them to get away with this, because everyone I know who consumes cannabis is such a superior critical thinker to most others. It seems almost like it is just a tool given by God to be used, which is what it is, because it grows out of the ground. And again, I want to, top, this little segment off by saying that what I learned from smarter people than myself, like Carl Lentz, and I know this simple concept. God created man, and man created government. So what God creates, I'm not going to really argue with. But what man creates, I will never be under the jurisdiction of. And it's really that simple. I will warn folks. It sounds like we've got mostly folks on the line that have been doing this and are more well informed than myself. But if folks are new listening to this, this sort of activism is dangerous. It is not something that will make you popular. It will make you unpopular. Speaking as a person who was at times in my life a popular person and not popular at this point, in the same way I used to be when I was, a business owner and a man about town in the city of Richmond. I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm much happier now, and for whatever that means, and I'm much more focused on doing something that has meaning, because I think that's what's missing in most folks' life. They don't know what the purpose of themselves being on the planet is. They think the purpose is to watch Dancing with the Stars, or to yell and scream for the Washington Redskins, or the Dallas Cowboys, or the New York Yankees, or watch Hollywood movies and consume mindless pornographic popular music. I mean, it is what it is. No offense to I don't have anything against what it is, but it is what it is. That's what it is. Or to even to comply with this popular culture now is to comply with these overt satanic and Illuminati rituals. It's not only just like that it's out there and that's what these folks are doing behind the scenes. It's like in order to be a part of the general everyday operations of the American population, one must be subjected to these overt Illuminati, satanic, ritualistic, mind control operations. And it's pretty obvious. It's out in the open. It's been documented by folks who get a lot more views than I do. Although, a lot of folks have watched, other smarter people and myself document pretty much, one of the major crimes of these banking cartels and laid it out there for all to see. I mean, several million people have seen that. But we need a critical mass, and we need a movement where it's It's going to be the truth and nothing but the truth, and it's going to be these open, public dialogues, and with the end goal of gaining control of the currency, and the only way that's going to be done is through armed entrance into the regional Federal Reserve banks, and a true audit, not any of this Zionist Rand Paul BS audit, because as we already stated at the beginning of this little segment that we were talking, the Title 31 of U.S. Code demands a more thorough audit every year than anything that either of the Paul family members of Congress are putting forward. And that's a physical audit of all the gold. Everything valuable, it's a physical audit. Because at the end of the day, when we take away these algorithmic computer programs and the monetizing of the debt and the toxic derivatives markets, all we will have left are the hard assets. And that's what the people must have. Because we can wind it down, this creating money out of thin air, it only, hyperinflates the economy and devalues the currency. And these things are, don't get fooled by the record highs in the stock market or anything associated with a so-called improving economy like employment rates fluctuating, because that's all just a lie. I mean, there's nothing accurate at all about anything that we hear on the mainstream media in regard to how the economy truly functions, or anything else for that matter. Anything else. And I would like to point out some things over this past week that folks have been maybe not thinking about, but that they run these psyops on us all the time. This Brian Williams psyop is the last bit of glossing over the Iraq War lies. So they're going to put all the Iraq War lies on Brian Williams. And I'm saying that this is not what they're overtly insinuating. I'm saying that this is a purpose that throwing Brian Williams under the bus serves. And also, everything Brian Williams says on the news is a lie. So they're attempting to, make it seem like, oh, it was just this one lie, and we're getting rid of the problem, and the problem is solved. If one gets into studying the way government functions, they will be an expert in human psychology, and they will be an expert in different tactics used to cover things up. And different, it's like, going inside the mind of like a sociopathic liar that wants you dead and wants to steal all your property before that happens. So, I mean, it's really that simple. A lot of folks are coming to this realization. I would love, I can't thank Barbie enough for this opportunity to talk to folks out there, and it's being recorded on this end, and I think in other places too. So I want this to be a starting point. When the Bilderbergs came to Chantilly, Virginia, back in the summer of 2012, myself and others organized something called Occupy Bilderberg. And we had some press conferences, and then the Alex Jones crew, they kind of took over. But I did get the opportunity to go on InfoWars and make a statement from the Bilderberg conference. And basically, we had already contacted the chief of the Fairfax Police and the superintendent of the Virginia State Police, and let them know that these criminals were going to be in Chantilly, Virginia, and that if they did not carry out lawful arrests on these folks, then they were complicit in the crime.